I'm Brian Kim. I'm 34 years old, and I live in Jeonju, South Korea. I've spent my entire life here. Jeonju is a quiet city rich in tradition, but my life had always felt trapped in a monotonous routine. I grew up in a devout Christian family, and the church always felt like my second home. My parents often said, "Hey Woon, believe in Jesus, and you will be saved." I accepted that without question. That morning was no different from any other. As I headed to work, a light spring rain fell outside the car window. A pastor's sermon played on the radio. God is a jealous God, only we know the truth. I nodded and gripped the steering wheel tightly. Then it happened. While trying to avoid a motorcycle that suddenly darted out at a crosswalk, I veered off the guardrail and plunged down the road. In that moment of suspension, all sound vanished. My heart raced wildly, and I felt no impact as my car hit the ground. Instead, I sensed my body growing lighter. When I opened my eyes, I was looking down at my body lying on the road. Am I dead? Rather than fear, a strange calm washed over me. My body no longer ached, and I could breathe easily. Instead, an unseen force gently lifted me up. A corridor filled with light appeared before me. It was a warm, vibrant light. Drawn by an irresistible pull, I stepped inside. As I walked into the light, all the fears and sorrows of the world melted away inside me, one by one. I was crying, but those tears weren't born from sadness. They came from an inexplicable sense of freedom. Suddenly, a figure appeared within the light. He looked human, yet felt like the light itself. A dazzling, warm, and loving energy radiated from him. Instinctively, I recognized him. It's Jesus. That smile spoke louder than any words. I knelt right there, unable to speak because of the lump in my throat. But Jesus approached gently and said, "Hey Woon, it's time you know the truth." Truth? What truth are you talking about? Jesus' words surrounded me like the air. It is time to know the truth. That phrase resonated deep within my chest. I asked with a trembling voice, "What do you mean by truth? I've believed in God my whole life." That gaze was deeper and more compassionate than any I had ever seen. "Many have taught you with good intentions," he said cautiously, "but the truth has been distorted through human hands." I swallowed hard. Distorted? I had lived my entire life relying on the church's teaching. I believed I couldn't exist without them. Yet here was Jesus telling me this wasn't the truth, and something inside me began to break. The things I called faith started to crack and quietly crumble. "Hey Woon," Jesus continued gently, "God is not an object of fear. He is not a being who judges, is jealous, or angry. God is pure love itself." His words flowed through my soul and lifted me up. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. These tears weren't from despair, but because I felt as if I had finally found my true home. Jesus motioned for me to follow him into the light. The light grew, even more radiant, filled with countless colors and shapes. I saw spaces within it, vibrant and alive. Endless libraries, beautiful gardens, and boundless seas. Everything was made of a love that words could never express. "It is no coincidence that you have come here," Jesus said. "You have long sought the truth. Although outwardly you were unaware, your soul has always known." I hung my head. It was true. Even though I went to church every week, I could never shake the feeling that something was missing deep inside. I would ask questions but find no answers, and when I doubted, I only felt guilt. So, I tried to stop questioning and simply believe. But now, all the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. Jesus took another step closer and whispered, "Let's go meet the real God." At that moment, another door opened before me. It was a door made of light. I looked at the door with a trembling heart. I didn't know what awaited me, but I no longer felt afraid. I stepped forward through the door. As I passed through the doorway of light, awe overwhelmed me, as if I might lose my breath. I had entered a world that could never be described in human language. Everything was alive, and everything was love. Even the air shimmered. and my body felt weightless. It felt like a soft, warm blanket of energy. With each step I took, light burst forth from my feet. I carefully glanced around. Someone was coming from a distance. They seemed human, yet also like a wave of light. As they got closer, their form became clearer. They smiled at me and reached out their hand. "Hey Woon, I've been waiting." That voice resonated not in my ears, but deep within my soul. I instinctively knew the God I had imagined all my life was a dangerous and fearsome being, someone who would judge me with terrifying eyes. But the God standing before me was completely different from what I had imagined. He was immense love, a warm and gentle energy that embraced everything. I knelt down and cried, "Please forgive me. I didn't understand," I said through my sobs. God quietly approached and placed a hand on my shoulder. That touch was comfort and healing beyond words. "Hey Woon," God said softly, "you have done nothing wrong. The things you knew were just distorted, but your heart has always sought me." His words melted away all the guilt and fear hidden inside me. For the first time, I felt true freedom before God. Real faith doesn't come from fear. God said, "True faith is born of love and freedom." Those words sank deep into me. I let go of everything in that moment. My long-standing doubts, guilt, and suppressed questions all began to reveal themselves. In an instant, my surroundings transformed once more. A new landscape unfolded. It was like a great river of truth. Each was a memory of souls and shards of truth. "All the answers you sought are here." I swallowed hard, gazing at the river. Inside it lay the history of humanity, the beginnings of religions, the journey of souls. Everything was contained within, and in that moment, an incredibly shocking scene stirred something within me as I gazed at the river of truth. Amidst the flowing pieces of light, I witnessed a scene. It was a very ancient time, long ago. I saw a few people sitting in a small room. They wore long cloaks and were writing documents with serious expression. But their gazes were filled not with purity, but with desire and fear. This teaching is too liberating. We can't control the people. We need to change it a bit. We must instill obedience and fear. That's how we maintain order. I was breathless. The teaching they were about to change was none other than that of Jesus. The truth that spoke of love and freedom was being distorted by human hands into fear and control. The scene continued to unfold. The medieval church, leaders who lost power, and the distorted truths forced upon countless people. All of it flowed past me like waves. I covered my mouth and began to cry. How could this happen? Much of what I had believed in my life was built on falsehoods, woven by human desire. Yet God stood quietly beside me. "Hey Woon," a gentle voice enveloped my soul. "The truth does not change. What has changed is the interpretation by humans, and you are witnessing the unchanging truth now." I lifted my gaze through my tears. Within the river of light, another scene emerged. This one was different. Children were laughing and hugging each other, and people were helping one another in life. There were no doctrines or rules, only love existed. This was what I wanted to share with the world. Jesus appeared beside me again and said, "Love one another, accept each other as you believe, and move forward in freedom, not fear." It was not something learned from books or sermons. My soul understood it fundamentally. In that moment, the old guilt, fear, and feelings of inadequacy within me melted away one by one. "Hey Woon, you are inherently a complete being. There is nothing more you need to prove." Jesus' words reached deep into my heart. I collapsed, crying and laughing at the same time. This was the first time I felt such a perfect sense of liberation. But it was not over yet. The river of light was preparing to reveal another truth. The river of light flowed gently, showing me another scene. This time, it was my past. Before I was born, a certain contract formed in the realm of souls was unfolding. I saw another version of myself, a being made of light. In front of me stood beings filled with love. They gently spoke to me. "Hey Woon, you will descend to earth to live as a human. There, You will face much confusion and suffering, but remember, you are going to seek the truth." I nodded. My soul embraced this journey without hesitation. "Why?" I whispered, as my current self. The answer to that question was conveyed not through words, but through energy. It is in the ability to choose light, even in darkness, that true love is realized. I trembled with a deep understanding. Every doubt, every pain, every loneliness and despair I had faced was not meaningless. They were all part of my journey leading to this truth. Hey Woon, Jesus has come back to me. You have never failed in this journey. Even the moments of wandering were sacred. You have always been loved. I wavered and fell to my knees. I didn't know. I always thought I was disappointing God. Jesus quietly smiled and lifted me up. Those words pierced deeply into my heart. I felt as if I was waking up from a long sleep. My perspective on life was changing completely. Now you can choose whether to stay here or to return to earth and live out the truth. I swallowed hard. This place was so beautiful and peaceful. The thought of returning to a world filled with pain and confusion was frightening, yet at the same time, a strong resonance echoed within me. You still have work to do. I quietly nodded. I will return. I will live remembering the truth. At that moment, a brilliant light began to shine around me, and I embarked on my journey once again. This time, it was a journey back to the world. In the intense waves of light, I slowly surrendered my body. As I decided to return, my soul began to pass through a different form of passage. This passage was different from the soft light tunnel I had previously traversed. This path felt a bit denser, with a slight resistance, but it was not frightening. Remember, Jesus' voice echoed from afar. Do not forget this truth when you return to the world. Many will not understand you, but you are not alone. I etched those words deep in my heart. Returning to the world was no longer just about living. I had now chosen to live out the truth. I felt my body become heavier. I felt the pull of gravity once more. At the same time, faint sounds began to brush against my ears. Voices of people, mechanical noises, and cries of anguish. My heart is coming back, harder, once again. I felt as if someone was pressing hard against my chest. It was a pain that felt like I might break, yet it also felt like a sign of life. I tried to open my eyes, but it wasn't easy. My body was heavy and numb, but there was a clear will within me. I have to go back. I must not forget what I have seen. After drifting in darkness for a while, I finally saw a tiny light. It was faint, but it gave me hope. I reached out toward that light. I am alive. As my awareness slowly returned, I saw the ceiling of a hospital. The fluorescent lights were flickering. Somewhere, the sound of a heartbeat monitor echoed, accompanied by my mother's tearful voice. I could see my mother's tear-streaked face hazily. In that moment, I understood. I had come back, but I was not the same as before. Now, I was someone who had seen both the lies and truths of the world. I had come to know what love truly is, what God really is like, and how sacred the journey of being human is. And I made a promise. I will never let this new life be in vain. My body still ached. At that moment, Jesus' gentle voice resonated within me once more. Remember the light, Hey Woon. I closed my eyes and deeply internalized those words. The hospital room was quiet. It was raining outside. I slowly moved my fingers. They were stiff, but they moved. It was hard to believe that I was alive. A nurse looked at me in surprise and ran out. Soon, my mom and dad came in. My mother held my hand tightly, crying and crying. Hey Woon, you are alive. Thank you, God. I tried to smile at my mother, but my lips trembled. I could feel her gratitude was genuine. But now, I realized the God I knew was a little different from what I had been taught. For days, the experiences I had gone through kept replaying in my mind. The world of light, Jesus, God, and the river of truth. How could I possibly explain all that? The doctor said, it's a miracle. Honestly, with this kind of trauma, the chances of survival were almost zero. After being discharged and returning home, everything felt different. Even the small flowers by the roadside and the faces of strangers passing by seemed to glow. I felt grateful for every breath I took, but at the same time, a heavy question weighed on my heart. How could I share this truth with the world? I found myself afraid of going to church. I quietly slipped away, worried the words I'd hear there might clash with the truth inside me. Instead, I sat alone on my bed every morning and prayed. And now, my prayers were no longer born out of fear, but out of love. Help me be someone who shares true love. Each time I prayed, a warm light spread deep within my heart. It felt more real and comforting than any words in the world. People around me started noticing the change. Hey Woon, something's different about you. You look so much more peaceful than before. I just smiled. How could I put everything I saw, felt, and understood into words? Truth isn't shown by persuading others with words. And I promised myself, even if it's just one person, I will live so that someone I meet can feel love. Time passed, and I slowly returned to my old routine. But that routine was no longer the same. Even though I walked the same streets and met the same people, I experienced everything differently. Sometimes I felt lonely. It seemed like no one could understand the world I had seen. Many times I lacked the courage to speak up. It hurt to see people still living in fear. The God I had seen was not a figure of fear, yet every time I quietly closed my eyes and recalled the tunnel of light. I remembered what Jesus said, true faith is born from love and freedom. I decided to start with the small things. On the subway, I offered my seat to a stranger. I kindly helped lost tourists find their way. Some people passed by without a word of thanks. Some days I was even ignored. But I understood, it's not the outcome that matters. It's the moment when you choose love that counts. The anger and hurt inside me began to fade little by little by little. Even when I wanted to hate someone, I asked myself, would I choose love or fear? And every time I chose love. I wasn't perfect, but I was getting closer to the light every day. One day, while reading in a small cafe, a child came up to me and said, "Auntie, your smile is like an angel's." Hearing that, tears welled up in my eyes. The effort I thought no one noticed had reached this small soul. At that moment, I understood. This is the true mission Jesus spoke of. It's not about grand sermons or huge miracles. It's about choosing love silently, moment by moment, and that love being planted like a small seed in the hearts of others. I looked out the window. The warm sunlight gently filtered through the trees. It felt as if God was smiling at me. I whispered softly, "I will follow the light today as well." And I understood. The reason I returned to this world wasn't for a grand mission, but to plant light in these very small moments. As time went on, a quiet conviction grew within me. Now I had to speak out. I didn't want to hide the truth anymore. That light was too warm and precious to keep to myself. Lately, a strong calling had been growing in my heart. The truth must be shared, but there was also fear. Would people look at me strangely? Would they point fingers and call me a traitor? I worried especially about my family. One evening, while singing with my family at a gathering, I cautiously spoke up. "Mom, Dad, I had a truly amazing experience when I was in the hospital." At first, everyone listened quietly. I shared about the world of light I saw the moment I met Jesus and who God truly is. God is not a fearful being. He is not a judge. God was love itself. As I spoke, I couldn't hold back my tears. This was not just a simple story, but a confession from my soul. My mother initially said nothing. My father held my hand tightly. After a long silence, my mother quietly said, "Hey Woo, I can see in your eyes that you are not lying." My father closed his eyes, thought for a moment, and then nodded. It seems we have always believed in God out of fear. At those words, I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. After that day, our family gathered every week to talk quietly, no longer afraid. We asked each other questions and shared our faith. And I realized that truth doesn't need to be loud. Truth simply spreads quietly like light. I whispered, Thank you for allowing love to spread through me. Deep in my heart, one hope grew, that one day I might share this light with more people. More time passed. I now live as an entirely new person. Whereas I once chased after success, recognition, rules, and compliance, now I live for one thing: to love. I still live in Jeonju. Not much has changed around me, but the world feels completely different. The laughter of people, the trees swaying in the wind, a warm cup of coffee. Everything feels sacred. I look up at the sky, and I feel that light. The smile that Jesus gave me, the touch that God placed on my shoulder. Those memories have become the center of my life. I haven't returned to church, but every morning when I wake up, I pray, please. Sometimes I meet the paramedics who saved me in the hospital. They say, "You were truly a miracle. Your heart stopped 3 times. I smile and respond, "At that time I was really dead, and I was born again." They laugh, but I'm serious. I've been there. To the world of light, to the embrace of the true God, to the warm gaze of Jesus. Death is merely a door back home. I'm still learning many things. I am not perfect. Sometimes I get angry, and fear can creep in. But whenever that happens, I remember the light is always within me. That light never goes out. It is a part of me. And I know that living in accordance with that light is the truest way to live. Some days, I quietly close my eyes and think of Jesus again. The last words he spoke to me: "Hey Wu, you are always loved." Those words will be my strength for life. And on the day I return to my true home, I will walk into that light without fear.